DOW. Dits on Wrestling.
Welcome to the Dits on Wrestling podcast, episode 22. I am your host, Dits, and I will be guiding you through this, well, I'm going to say it's a tremendous episode, but I might be a little bit biased. This actually was supposed to take a completely different shape today, but I have been rescued. So today was supposed to be a wrestler. He was supposed to be coming on and doing an interview, but, you know, idiot boy over here massively completely got the time zones wrong, because this guy's in Canada and, you know, of course I'm in the UK, and I just went, well, there's only a 4-hour difference. Yeah, turns out that's not the case. It is actually a 6-hour difference. So yeah, a big oops on my part there, but hey, I have friends in this area, in this biz, if you will, and one Omega Luke, fellow Plymouth City, fellow townsfolk / type person, he's come to the rescue today, and I mean I got to applaud the guy, because we've done back-to-back recording. It's out there now on Twitter that he is my third guest on DOW Draft That. So you can go and check out the last two. Very, very fun stuff. But he's the third guest on that show. So we've already recorded that. And then he's come on the show, and I think we recorded it at about 1:45 in the morning. And if you're listening to this the day it drops, that was last night / early hours of this morning. So absolutely fair play to Luke for coming on and rescuing, you know, some kind of segment on the show. But to be fair, it was something that we had planned for months, because we both are huge fans of The Rock, and he is the reason that we got drawn in to wrestling. So it made sense that Luke would come on and we would just talk about The Rock. Just a general chit-chat about The Rock, talking about our favorite moments, our favorite promos, our favorite matches, and just The Rock in general, because The Rock is a great guy. He was a great wrestler, great character in wrestling. You know, I mean, when you really look back, he didn't actually spend that much time with WWE. Like, when it seems mental when you look back on it. Because I in my head, I always go, well, he was with WWE for like 10 years, but I think it was only like 5, if that. And you look at guys like Roman Reigns, for example. I think Roman Reigns has been in WWE longer than The Rock was in WWE. I might be completely wrong saying that, but if that is correct, then that comparison is mind-blowing. It really is. But, you know, regardless of how long he was in, what an impact The Rock made to wrestling. And it's an absolute pleasure having Omega Luke coming on and rescuing the show and, you know, talking all about our favorite wrestler. But as I alluded to, you know, a couple of minutes ago, Luke is coming back on the show on Monday for DOW Draft That. Episode 3, we are doing a draft of factions and stables in the world of wrestling, and we have recorded it at this point, so as you're listening to this, that show is recorded and ready to drop next Monday, and it's a lot of fun. It is a great show, and the Draft That series, it's become the norm, to be honest. It's been fun ever since, you know, Anthony Talk Stuff was episode 1, had a great time with that. Will from Brainbuster Radio, Guyconics podcast, Omega Luke's co-host on the Guyconics podcast. That episode was a lot of fun as well. And now I have Omega Luke coming on. So I am a guy who cannot complain at all. But that's coming on Monday. The Rock Chat is obviously coming up later on in the show. But of course we have other stuff to get into. We have this week's DOW Power Rankings. We've got Raw highlights and we've got Smackdown highlights. There is no Q&A this week because I didn't get any questions out. I think I'm actually going to make it like a bi-weekly thing. So it's not me constantly, you know, barraging people for, you know, questions to get on the show. So I think I'll do it bi-weekly. So next week I will make sure there's a Q&A on the show. And by the way, great show lined up for next week. I'm not going to reveal who it is. The only person that knows who's coming on next week is one Omega Luke and my wife. But yeah, it's going to be a good show next week. A very, very good show. Now, whilst you're here, again, this is what I always have to say to you guys, because you're listening to this, and that means you're taking time out of your day to listen to it, regardless of whether you're actively listening to it or it's just something going on in the background. You are still listening to me talk about wrestling. So a huge thank you for you doing that. But a review on iTunes and a 5-star rating also wouldn't go amiss. So if you head over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever they want to call it these days, drop me a 5-star review and give me a comment on it, or whatever they call it, reviews, comments. All of that is greatly appreciated. And, of course, across the podcast directories, subscribe, follow, whatever, the directories, button is called. Apple Podcasts is obviously subscribe. Spotify, I believe, is follow. I don't know what the other ones are, because they're the only two I really use for podcasts. But go and do that, because that way you never miss a show. I know they always drop on a Thursday, and the Draft That series always drops on a Monday. But I'm getting to that point now where bonus episodes will start slowly creeping in, especially for takeovers. And, I might even incorporate that into, pay-per-views as and when they come out. So something to bear in mind, so you never miss an episode. Now, one thing that has played on my mind before we get into the power rankings is, of course, SmackDown is moving over to Fox next week. It's huge. WWE, of course, haven't talked about it at all. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. But obviously that airs on a Friday. So I'm a little bit concerned how I think what I'm going to do, because I did consider changing days for this show so it fit into the WWE's new schedule, because ultimately that's what this is. I cater this podcast mostly to WWE, but there's also AEW coming out as well, which has been revealed that it'll air in the UK on ITV4, but on a Sunday morning. So that's 4 days after it airs in America, we will get it on the Sunday morning, which seems so strange. It works for me because, I get up early, on the weekends with the kids. So, I'll be up ready to receive, all that AEW goodness. But by then, spoilers will be out. So it's interesting how that'll play. Whether that'll, remain, going forward, they might end up airing it live. I don't know how it's going to play out. Hopefully that's what they end up doing, because I can just record it and watch it the next day, as I do with RAW and Smackdown. But yeah, I did consider changing my days around to cater for it, but that's not going to happen. So still going to air on a Thursday every single week. But SmackDown will obviously be a distant memory by that time. So SmackDown will be the first set of highlights we do, and then Monday Night Raw. So nothing's really going to change apart from swapping the highlights around, and the fact that SmackDown won't be as fresh as it should be. But hey, that doesn't matter. All you need to know is that nothing is changing. DOW, the Dits on Wrestling podcast, the DOWPOD, is going to stay on its home on a Thursday. So do not worry. But let's get into the crux of this thing, because we do have some lovely stuff to get into right now. Let's get into some DOW Power Rankings this week. And as always, there was a good turnout from you guys, the Twitter people, the listeners of the show. So thank you very much for every single ranking and list that you supplied this week. And there's some good ones this week. And I have to say, I got a little bit nervous because there was 2 people this week who were literally one person off getting the final 5, the locked-in 5. So I thought I was going to have to give away the mystery prize this week to 2 people, but thankfully your 5th picks let you down this week. So we'll see how close you were. We'll see how close you were by revealing the top 10, starting with number 10. Number 10, Becky Lynch with 8 points. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't remember what Becky Lynch did last week. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know if she wrestled or did anything, to be honest. I know she was on Raw. I can reveal that much, but I don't know what she did after Clash of Champions. I think it was kind of, she made the whole Hell in a Cell thing. I could sit here and try and talk about what she did, but I actually can't remember. But it was whatever she did, it was worthy of a top 10 spot. This is the problem with doing the power rankings a week later, revealing the power rankings anyway. So, oh well, she's your number 10 with 8 points. Number 9, a first for the DOW Power Rankings on the second coming of the Power Rankings anyway. Lio Rush at number 9 with 9 points. And this one I do know why he's reached the top 10. He had a match with Oney Lorcan over on the new look NXT over on USA Network. Well, actually, this bit was on the WWE Network because I actually was able to watch this bit. It's annoying. It's a 2-hour show, and I only get to watch an hour of it. So shame on me for being a fan from the UK. There you go. But it was a really good match. I really enjoyed it. There was some really good spots in there. Lio Rush looked incredible. It was a surprise to see him as well, which I think kind of, added to the whole thing. I didn't expect Lio Rush to show up at all. Obviously, they kept that one in their back pockets, ready to go for NXT, starting on USA Network. And yeah, like I said, he put in a very, very good showing. There's some really cool spots. He did a nice little stunner from the ropes, but it wasn't like the Cena stunner that we remember where he springboarded off the ropes. It was, I can't even describe it. He kind of he flew under the middle rope and then bounced back up again. The thing looked cool as hell. So he put in a very, very good performance, which is why he's obviously made the top 10 at number 9. At number 8, we have Sasha Banks with 11 points. I actually remember what she did this time. She was in a tag match with Bayley against the women's tag team champions, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. But don't ask me who won that match because I can't remember. The only thing I can remember from that match is Sasha seemingly giving a pretty stiff kick to Alexa Bliss. That's all I remember. But I'm sure that Sasha Banks and Bayley would have won this thing. Surely. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in the top 10. We'd be seeing Bliss and Nikki Cross in here. So I'm going to say that she won. She might not have won, but she might have won. But she's in our top 10, regardless, at number 8 with 11 points. Number 7, we have Eric Rowan with 12 points. Now, this one I know why he's in there. What a great ending to SmackDown Live last week with we had Daniel Bryan coming out asking what the hell was going on with Eric Rowan. Rowan came out, basically said, I ain't taking your crap, and proceeded to kick the living daylights out of Daniel Bryan with the help of one Luke Harper. Roman Reigns tried to come out and even the odds. Didn't work out for him either, and it was just destruction from there. Eric Rowan looked absolutely fantastic, coming off a good performance at Clash of Champions as well. We're in a good spot with Eric Rowan, I think. And, you guys definitely thought he was worthy of a top 10 spot. And so do I. At number 6, we have Chad Gable with 13 points. Now, you might say that him losing in that King of the Ring final match, was, kind of a vote against him. But did you see that match? It was phenomenal. Like, Chad Gable and Baron Corbin, of all people, put on a fantastic match. Now, of course, I like Baron Corbin. I'm no stranger on this show to saying how much, I enjoy Baron Corbin. But I did not expect this level of match, even though it was the King of the Ring final, where you kind of expect it. When you look at, Baron Corbin and Chad Gable, on paper, you kind of go, it'll be good, but not this good. This was something else. And Chad Gable, what an absolute performance that he put in. The crowd really behind him at the moment. They really are. And God, I don't know where his ceiling is at the moment. I don't know where management see him, but at the moment he's getting a nice little push despite the loss. So he definitely looked good in defeat. And you guys, of course, thought he was a fantastic performer this week as well, as he is number 6 with 13 points. Number 5, Luke Harper, 15 points. Now, he might be a little bit higher than Eric Rowan this week because I think just because we haven't seen him. Or maybe he just did some extra destruction at the end of SmackDown Live, which has pushed him up a little bit further. But it's great to see Luke Harper back. I like him with Eric Rowan. I think they're a really good pairing. He is a good single star, don't get me wrong, but I don't think WWE are going to see it that way. So the next best thing is to see him partner with Eric Rowan rather than not being on TV at all, which did seem like it was going to be that way for a long time. But he was part of a fantastic ending to a fantastic SmackDown Live last week, and you guys voted him in at 5th place with 15 points. Now, 4th place, looking at the list here, I thought he was going to be higher, actually. I thought he was going to be higher, but, it is what it is. Baron Corbin, 4th place with 32 points. He is your King of the Ring winner, King of the Ring 2019 winner. And like I said, when I was talking about Gable, what a fantastic performance he put in. He dominated most of the match, but he looked convincing in it. He looked fantastic. His move, everything was pretty fluid. And just the story he told in the match, just everything. Everything was really, really good. And then we had the coronation on SmackDown, the following night as well. And I actually forgot to mention that with Gable. So Gable put in another good performance there. He stood up to Corbin finally. But Corbin, was the brash heel, talking crap, exactly what we expected of this King Corbin character, which we are now seeing. But I did think he would be higher, but 4th place is nothing to be sniffed at. And he is 4th place with 32 points. Now we got the top 3. The top 3 is always the tense moment of the DOW Power Rankings. And at number 3 this week, we have Roderick Strong, 36 points. Now, of course, I didn't see any of this. I haven't seen the match because, lo and behold, it was on TV and not on the network. So I'll probably go back and watch this at some point when it's available. It might be available now for all I know. I don't know. But he is the new North American champion after defeating the Velveteen Dream. And the prophecy is fulfilled with the Undisputed Era. They now have all the gold. I am hearing it was a good match. So I can see why he's at number 3. It was pretty unanimous, to be honest, amongst all of the people that ranked this week. Most of you had him around the 3rd place spot. So, yeah, it's not surprising. It's not surprising. A big win on a big NXT episode. Lots of eyes on it. He's your number 3. Well-deserved, 36 points. But who's number 1 this week? I'm looking at this, the top 2 here, and it's deserved. I would say it's definitely deserved, based on not only just performances but match result as well. But who is number 1 between the two of these? Well, I can tell you who number 2 is. It's Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, with 46 points. Oh yeah, so there's a 10-point gap between 2nd and 3rd. But Bray Wyatt this is something I definitely remember from last week, because I remember putting it in my notes when I was covering the Raw highlights. I just put in capitals, that ending. Unbelievable. Took out Kane and then did the whole creepy thing towards Seth. And then throughout the night, we saw Bray Wyatt as well. So it was a whole package. We had the Funhouse segment, then the ending where he took out Kane and then didn't touch Rollins. And I like that. The character work with the Fiend is just fantastic at the moment. I cannot put it down, cannot say a negative thing about it. I really, really can't. And yeah, he was unbelievable. Unbelievable last week. Unbelievable. And that's why he's number 2 with 46 points. But who's number 1? This is somebody who I didn't see because, unfortunately, it was on network TV and not on the WWE network, so I wasn't able to see the match. It was a woman, from the Fatal 4-Way to determine the number one contender to face Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's Championship. And, of course, it was always going to be the winner of that match. Candice LeRae is the number one ranked wrestler this week on the DOW Power Rankings with 51 points. So she's ahead of Bray by 5 points. So bravo to Candice. I mean, I'll do a clap there. Absolutely bravo. As far as I'm aware, that match was amazing. This is what I'm hearing. And of course, Candice was the victor of that match. So it's really, really good to see her. I mean, she's kind of in the spotlight, anyway, but now that she's in the spotlight, she's in the title match. And it's fresh for Shayna Baszler as well, because I'm sure I think they've faced each other. I might be wrong, but not in a title match. So it's nice and fresh. It kicked off the new era of NXT in a huge way, and I just wish I was able to watch this match. I'm sure if I looked for this match, I would be able to find it, but it would probably be slightly illegal, so I won't be doing that. I will wait until it comes on the network properly, and I will go back and watch this, because I know a lot of people that raved about it, so I'm curious to see how that all pans out. But there you go. She is your number one, Candice LeRae, with 51 points. That's a strong power rankings this week. That's a strong top 10. A couple missed out. Imperium just missed out. Io Shirai. Sid Scala was somebody who just missed out as well. And you can imagine as well that a couple of the other women's competitors in that Fatal 4-Way were in there as well, just missing out too. But there you go. That is the top 10 this week for the DOW Power Rankings. I'll just reel them off for you. At number 10, we had Becky Lynch with 8 points. At number 9, Lio Rush with 9 points. Number 8, Sasha Banks, 11 points. Number 7, Eric Rowan, 12 points. Number 6, Chad Gable, 13 points. Number 5, Luke Harper, 15 points. Number 4, the King of the Ring, Baron Corbin, 32 points. The new North American champion in at number 3, Roderick Strong, 36 points. Number 2, Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, with 46 points. And Candice LeRae, the new number 1 contender to the NXT Women's Championship, 51 points. There you go. Great power rankings. Of course, the new window will likely be open by the time you're listening to this, and will close on Sunday, as it does every single week. This week we'll cover the standard affair, so Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, NXT, and NXT UK. Now, you can imagine next week, it's going to be a big week next week, because there's not next week, the week after, because there's a lot of stuff going on. NXT continues its 2-hour showing, but it's against AEW. Raw is over on doing a season premiere, and then SmackDown is, of course, joining Fox. So we've got a lot of stuff to look forward to. So that might shape the power ranks in a new way. Hell in a Cell's on as well. How can I forget that? Hell in a Cell is on as well. So a good couple of weeks of the power rankings coming up with the show. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But of course, go and make your rankings now. If you are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday listening to this. Otherwise, well, you've just missed out. So look for next week for those results on the Dits on Wrestling podcast, the weekly Dits on Wrestling podcast shows. That is the DOW Power Rankings this week. So that, of course, means next up is Monday Night Raw. Steph, lead us in.
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
Before we get into the top 3 highlights of Monday Night Raw this week, this was something I did write down as like a mini highlight. Just the start of the show, the whole Then Now Forever opening to Raw. It was all funhoused. It was all fiended. It was fantastic. I didn't expect it. Straight away, Raw grips me just by the distortion and glitching going on. Clearly, the Fiend's influence going on there, and I just liked it. It was a nice little touch to open up the show. So just have to shout that one out before we get into things. But Raw this week I didn't find it as great as it usually is. I usually pick up a lot more highlights as I go through the show. It wasn't a bad show. It definitely wasn't a bad show. It was a good show. It just wasn't great. But that's, like I said, it's not a bad thing. It was a good show. So I cannot complain. I have no complaints. But let's get straight into the top 3 highlights this week. And a rematch from last week is my first highlight of the week, and that is Gable versus Baron Corbin. Now, when this started, I was a little bit... I just wasn't I wasn't into the match. It was a very slow start. It was good to see King Corbin coming down with a little bit of a rejigged theme tune, a nice little cape, and black scepter and black crown. It was very Game of Thrones. It was very cool. I like the look, and I'm into King Corbin at the moment. But like I've said, in previous episodes, I hope it doesn't drag on. But for now, I'm loving it. Keep that going. But the match itself, it started slow, but then it just built up, and it wasn't as good as last week, but we still had a really, really good match. And I didn't even finish. I wasn't even towards the finish of the match, and I put it down as not only a highlight, but I put a tick next to it as well, because I knew it was going to be top 3 for me this week. And yeah, there was some really good spots. And to be honest, the biggest takeaway for me when it comes to this match, but this had the highlight, the wrestling is just WWE at the moment, is the fact that Chad Gable is slowly becoming the most over guy in WWE right now. Last week the crowd were massively behind him. Every near fall, every slight little bit of hope we had of him becoming King of the Ring, the crowd were just so behind him, giving him that push, giving him that momentum the whole way through. And this week was just like a rematch. There was no stipulation or anything coming out of it. It was literally just a revenge kind of thing for what happened last week with the coronation. So for the crowd to be behind Gable as much as they were was really, really good to see. Like he is really starting to make waves. The fans are really getting behind him now. So I'm hoping... this might be Paul Heyman's influence that we're seeing right now. So there are a lot of guys who kind of were overlooked for quite a while, and were just there. They just existed on Raw. Guys like Cedric, guys like Chad Gable. Well, he's more SmackDown, but that caliber of guys, those kind of guys, they're starting to show up now, starting to get showcased a little bit more. So, some might not necessarily be pushed, but they're getting featured on TV, and they're looking good for the most part. And Chad Gable is somebody that is definitely taking advantage of this, because he is killing it. He is killing it. And if he keeps this up, then I don't know how far this can go. I don't know what the ceiling is with him, but I'm excited to see where Chad Gable goes. The draft is, of course, coming up, so it'd be interesting to see where he goes. People are saying that SmackDown is going to be the A show now because it's on Fox, and that will become the priority. So would he fit there as a tool for more eyes? More eyes will be on that, so they'll go, right, well, let's use Gable because he is getting over. Or will it just be a case of let's just put him over on Raw, where he's going to flourish anyway, regardless. But it's interesting. I'll be interested to see where he goes. But the match itself this week was really, really good. Not on par last week, like I said, but it was really, really good. And you cannot complain about these things. Nothing to complain about. My second highlight from Raw is another match, of course. It was the 5-way, elimination match to determine the number one contender for Seth Rollins' Universal title, which will be showcased next week on the season premiere of Monday Night Raw. I don't get why they have season premieres. Even it airs every single week. There is no off season, so I don't know why they do it. There must. I don't know what American TV, the ins and outs of it. So you guys might understand it. For the American listeners amongst you, you might know more than I do as to why they are doing a season premiere, despite the fact there is no gap in one episode to another. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. We're getting some funky new graphics though. It's just kind of built on the current logo that they have, but they've changed. They've kind of made it like twisted and added some stuff. So I'm looking forward to that next week. And Pyro apparently is coming back and a new stage. So these are the rumors going around. I don't know if any of it's been confirmed, but I am excited. So we have all of that to look forward to next week. But this week, of course, we had the 5-way. And every single person in this match, whether it was Rey Mysterio, whether it was Shinsuke Nakamura, whether it was Ricochet, AJ Styles, or Robert Roode, every single person in this match shone. Like, I thought it was, these matches where it's kind of like multi-person, whether it's a triple threat, fatal 4-way, or a fatal 5-way in this case. I think WWE recently, in the last couple of years anyway, have handled them really well. I find it hard. If somebody asked me to find a bad multi-man match, not tag matches, just multi-man, so you triple threats, yeah, I would really, really struggle to find a bad one. I think good is probably about the level that we stick at, the base level for these kind of matches. This match was passed. I actually thought it was great. I really did. There were some really cool spots. One of my favorite spots in the match was Robert Roode launching Rey under the rope, and then he landed on Ricochet on the outside. Loved that spot. It was very inventive. The match was just full of great stuff. I mean, you had Ricochet and you had Rey Mysterio in there, so you had a lot of high-flying elements in there. You had AJ Styles in there as well. I mean, AJ Styles is fantastic. And Nakamura looked very strong as well. It's really good to see an Intercontinental Champion in WWE looking good. Of course, you had Sami Zayn doing his best Mario impression in there as well. That was all fun. What I was surprised with is the fact that Robert Roode was in the final two. That actually really, really surprised me. I don't know if it was done in, as a swerve kind of thing, or if management are pretty high on Robert Roode at the moment, because he is the tag team champion along with Dolph Ziggler. So they think something of him to give him a title in WWE, but to have him in the final two of this thing is, I don't know. I don't know if it was just because it was the match. I don't know if it's because the guys backstage are, loving his stuff at the moment. I mean, like I said earlier, Paul Heyman is, pulling strings at the moment. So maybe he's high on Robert Roode's stuff. I don't know. But he was impressive. He did impress me in the match. He looked really, really good. And I think he has done for the last couple of weeks now, since that pairing with Ziggler. I have to be honest. I've never not been a Robert Roode fan. I loved him when he was in NXT. When he came up, I did like him. I just didn't like the fact that he was made a babyface. I think if he came up as a heel, he'd be in a different place right now. I don't think he would be like a world champion or anything like that, but I just think he would have found a little bit more success at this point. But it is what it is, everything happens for a reason. Everyone's paths, go different routes, and sometimes they eventually make their way back on course. Other times they just spiral out, and then you'll find them either floundering in the undercard or on main event or just random network shows, or they might even just be released. But Robert Roode seems to have found his way back on the path, and yeah, absolutely impressive showing during that 5-way match. But everybody looked good. Ricochet's eating the first pin as well. That's a surprise. But I get it. That's just nitpicking, to be honest, because you look at the guys in that match, And you kind of go, well, one of these guys has to eat the pin first. So it's going to be a shock regardless. I mean, Robert Roode would be the guy if, before the match, if somebody said to me, all right, who's going to take the first pin? I'd go Robert Roode. But it turns out Robert Roode was in the last two. So, hey, what do I know? But no, really good match. Really looking forward to Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins next week. I'm pretty sure they've faced off before. I'm trying to... did they? Maybe? Did he have any interaction with the Shield? I don't think they have. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I will have to look that up. But regardless of whether they have or not, next week is going to be a really fun match. But the way I see it playing out, we're going to have a great match. It's going to be, starting to build towards that finish, and it will look like Rey is about to win the big one again. His whole redemption arc, his rediscovery of his confidence in himself. That whole arc will just come to a grinding halt. Just when we think it's just going to reach the pinnacle of that arc, it's just going to come to a grinding halt with that screeching throughout the arena, and the Fiend will appear. He'll add Rey Mysterio to his wall of friends in the Funhouse, and of course, that'll cause the DQ, and Seth will retain going into Hell in a Cell. That's what I think is going to happen next week. So I'll call back to this little segment next week to see if I was right, but that's what I'm going with, because you could count Rey as a legend, and most of the guys on the Fiend's hit list are legends. So there is that. But that was my number 2 highlight. My third and final highlight, of course, to be honest, is actually, I left this note in there from last week. Last week, I put that ending in capital letters, and I put a tick next to it. This week, I didn't even change it. It remained that ending in capital letters with a green tick next to it. Exactly the same. What an ending. In fact, this topped last week for me because, Kane is, of course, he was just there for the one-off. But Braun is an established star. Regardless of how he's booked, he is an established star. And for him to come in and take him down twice, of course, it looked good for Braun to be able to, kind of recover from what happened. But then he just ate the mandible claw all over again. We had that going on. And then, of course, we had, Seth quaking in his boots in the corner. And I'm loving the fact that WWE, the writers, Seth himself, they're really selling the fact that the Fiend is scary as hell. You wouldn't want that thing, regardless. I mean, of course, I'm talking in storyline terms here. You wouldn't want that thing, staring at you in the ring. Next, he is a thing of nightmares, just like Seth Rollins said. So it's really, really good to see that vulnerability in Seth. I have read online some ridiculous stuff, nobody's ever happy saying that it makes Seth look weak as Universal Champion, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. You can't have Rollins just brush off the Fiend, just yeah, whatever, mate. You just can't. It wouldn't work. The story just would not work. So this is the right course of action. This is the right path for this story to take. Now, my only thing really around this, feud that they've got going on is away from the cameras. So they had a live event match last week, and I believe there was a segment after. I say I believe, I've seen it. There was a segment after Raw went off the air as well, where Seth was curb stomping the hell out of the Fiend, left, right, and center. Now, of course, the Fiend came out on top every single time, whether it was, putting him in the mandible claw or, whatever. He always came out on top. But it was the fact that we're seeing all this stuff where the Fiend is getting, beaten down by Seth. I mean, there actually was a cool spot, the one after Raw. He ate a curb stomp and then just literally just popped back up. That was really cool. And then I think he ate 3 curb stomps after that, stayed down, and then the lights went off. So, I mean, this kind of feeds into what I said earlier. The whole character of the Fiend is fantastic. I'm loving that. But it just seems weird that we're not seeing any of this. the problem is that we've got social media, we've got people with cameras. So I don't know if WWE are thinking, oh, well, we'll do this. This is like really cool. We'll do this for the fans, and then not actually thinking, this is gonna show up on social media. This is gonna show up online. People are gonna see this. Or maybe that's the intention. I don't know what the mindset is behind it, but I'd love to be able to actually see this stuff playing out on TV because it adds another element to it. You got Seth Rollins being scared as hell, but then, he sees an opportunity, he takes it, but he has to really dig down deep to keep the Fiend down. And just when he thinks, I might have the upper hand here, the Fiend pulls out another trick. Lights go off. Seth eats either the mandible claw or he'll eat his sister Abigail. Done. It's just an interesting take. And if you are on social media seeing all this stuff, and if you are, looking online and seeing all this stuff, we get to reap the benefits of it regardless of whether it's on TV or not. But some people don't really, I say some, it's probably a minority, but there are people that would, not necessarily be on social media, so they'll miss out on this stuff. And this is really cool stuff as well. So, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't really care because I'm loving the feud. Absolutely loving the feud, regardless of what's going on. I love it. So I'm really looking forward to that Hell in a Cell match next week. Jesus, it's weird saying that. Next week is Hell in a Cell. Like, already, Clash of Champions was only a week ago. Oh, I can't keep up with this wrestling sometimes. I really can't. They're my top 3 highlights from Raw. And to be honest, there wasn't really that much around it that really stood out for me. The opening tag was pretty good between the Viking Raiders and the OC. I'd love to see the OC booked a lot stronger than they are, but at the same time, you kind of need the Viking Raiders to be booked strong as well because they've been squashing jobbers for so long. It kind of loses its effect, so it's nice to see them pick up a big win against a well-established team. Especially now that they're back in the spotlight again with AJ. So I guess if you look at it, Viking Raiders needed the win more. But I half expected a DQ finish or something like that. But the match itself was really good. I love the Viking Raiders. They're as a team, I think they're really good. As individuals, I think they're great as well. And I am a fan of the OC as well. So this match was always going to be, pretty good. And it was good. So that's why it was a highlight. But not top 3 worthy for me this week. And honestly, my only other highlight that I have is Carmella winning the 24/7 title. It was a strange little segment, but strange and the 24/7 title, they kind of go hand in hand, to be honest. But it was nice. It was a nice change of pace from seeing R-Truth or Drake in that picture. I mean, I know R-Truth is still in the picture because he's linked with Carmella, but the fact that you had all like the I guess you could say misused undercard, whatever you want to call them, those women coming down and entering the 24/7 title picture, which we haven't really seen at this point. Of course, we, had the night Raw reunion when we had all the legends. So you had Kelly winning it, and Alundra Blaze, she got it. But they were just flash in the pans. They were just one night only kind of deals. But now Carmella, she's a full-time wrestler on the roster, and now you got all the full-time, women in the back coming out as well. It's just going to add a little bit of something to that 24/7 title, because for me, although I enjoy, everything associated with it, I think it's starting to lose a little bit of its magic for me. So this adds a little bit of, it refreshes it a little bit for me, just getting the women involved for a little bit. So I'm looking forward to it and seeing where it goes. But it's good for Carmella as well. I mean, you could look and just go, well, the 24/7 title, whatever. It's a throwaway thing because guys from the Fox broadcast team have won the damn thing. And I guess, yeah, you could look at it and go, well, it is what it is. But it still elevates Carmella regardless of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. And that was another highlight. It just wasn't a top 3 highlight for me this week. But that's my views on Monday Night Raw. It was a good show. It just wasn't great. Like I said, I struggled more this week to get highlights than I have in recent weeks. But, that's not a bad thing. It isn't a bad thing. Maybe it just means that I'm not being as generous and I'm just actually closing these highlights down so I'm not jabbering on for half an hour, but there you go. Of course, we have some tweets this week to see what you guys thought of Raw. You've already heard what I think of it, so we might as well hear what you guys have to say. And I apologize straight away if I get this name wrong. It's John Briones, one or the other. Apologies, John, if I got that wrong. He says, yes, Rey Mysterio, amazing. How good you still are, bro. You still got it. Next week versus Rollins is going to be one for the books. Yes, it will. I'm really, really looking forward to this. I think their styles will mesh really well together. Of course, I've given my prediction of what is going to happen next week. It's going to be a great match, but it's going to be interrupted. Just as Rey seems to be near that 1, 2, 3 to pick up the win, the lights are going to go off, the Fiend's going to come out, and then he's going to ruin everybody's day. Well, not my day, because I love the Fiend, so he's not going to ruin my day, but he's definitely going to ruin Rey Mysterio's day, and I'm sure, he's not going to be making Seth Rollins' day any better, because, he's going to have to change through another set of wrestling tights because of all the piss that has come out. But there you go. He's scared shitless, Seth, of the Fiend at the moment, but there you go. Ooh. There we go, that's better. I was going to read his name, but it was just, I just don't know anymore is the name, but Nick Charles is actually what we're going with, at Nick Charles 1010. Thoughts on Raw? The majority of the matches were great. I especially enjoyed the Fatal 5-Way, so did I. The Fiend continues to be the main reason to watch. So some positive stuff there, all agreed. And then Lacey Evans needs to stop. Just stop. Admittedly, I go hot and cold with Lacey, to be honest. Sometimes I go, actually she's not that bad. She's still green. She is. She's definitely is green. That's I don't think many can argue against that. She is green. Called up too soon from NXT. She could still learn so much from down there. It's a weird one. Sometimes she looks good, and other times not so much. And I guess the sharpshooter was the exclamation point on that this week. It wasn't great. It wasn't great. And it seems to be the general consensus with Lacey. Not many fans, but I can take her or leave her, to be honest. The PWP, despite an auspicious start, the Viking Raiders are slowly but surely getting over with a crowd on the main roster. Absolutely. They wrestled too many jobbers. They went away for like a couple of weeks as well. They were hitting their stride. Started with jobbers. Moved on to some more established guys. They beat former tag team champions, or they beat the tag team champions. I can't remember at the time. Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins. Then disappeared for 4 or 5 weeks. Then came back and wrestled jobbers for 2 years. And now they're finally wrestling more established teams. So, it has been a slow process. But we're there now. They're exactly where they need to be. They are looking fantastic between the ropes. Their promo game we don't really know about at the moment. We just get the odd, video appearing every now and then before a match where they kind of just mumble some stuff. It doesn't really affect anything really, the grand scheme of things. But yeah, we're getting to that point now where the Viking Raiders are being booked well, and it's good to see. Adam said, at the real ad 22, the endings of Raw these past 2 weeks have been some of the best I've seen in a while. I'm liking it. Yes. And that is why, in my notes, it literally only says, in capitals, that ending. I 100% agree with you. The endings have been amazing. Some of the best in recent memory, for sure. The clean finish said, good guy Bray Wyatt continues to protect Seth Rollins from harm. Yes, he does. And I think Bray Wyatt mentioned that in the Funhouse segment as well, saying how he's not out to hurt Seth Rollins, is just out here to protect him. So it's all part of the mind games, all part of the incredible story, the incredible character of Bray Wyatt. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That's it. That's a bit of an anticlimax, and I thought there was another tweet. But that is your tweets for this week. Some positive stuff, but negatives aimed at Lacey Evans this week. But there you go. So last week we had a voice clip. The week before we had a voice clip. And of course this week we're going to have a voice clip. It is par for the course. It's standard stuff. This week, Alec Miller is supplying the voice clip, and I'm interested to hear what he has to say about Raw, so let's get into it.
All right, everybody. My name is Alec, here to give my real quick thoughts on what I thought of Monday Night Raw yesterday. I will say probably my favorite thing that happened last night was the fatal five-way match, the elimination match, and the fact that we had Rey Mysterio going over. I think that Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins is a great match to start off the season premiere, quote unquote, of Monday Night Raw, even though it's really not getting a break, but who cares? You know, I think it's a great way to get more people's eyes on it. And I honestly don't see Seth and Rey Mysterio putting out a bad match together. And then also you have The Fiend to look forward to, which goes into my next favorite thing that I liked about the show. The Fiend attacking Braun Strowman. I don't think it's any secret that The Fiend is probably the best thing that's happening on WWE programming at the moment. And I think the way that they've handled The Fiend has been absolutely perfect. And I don't think that throwing him into the world title picture is a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing. You know, strike while the iron is hot. We've seen WWE have hot acts that just take off, but then they don't, they hesitate to pull the trigger. I.e. Braun Strowman, when he was the hottest, he was really, in the universe's eye as what people wanted to see. And then we ended up, getting stalled after stalled attempt at the Universal Championship, to the point where he got boring. Recently he's gotten a little bit better, but he's had to recover. And I think if you do the same thing with The Fiend and Bray Wyatt, you risk that same thing happening, especially with Bray Wyatt's past of not winning major feuds. So I really hope that, it'd be a great way to send off The Fiend. I think going into Hell in a Cell next Sunday is attacking Rey Mysterio, but not until we get a great match from both Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. And then we'll see what happens next with The Fiend and Braun Strowman. Maybe he could possibly be the next, if The Fiend wins the Universal Championship at Hell in a Cell, maybe Braun Strowman will be the first challenger. Because this isn't like the other guys that The Fiend has attacked. The Fiend has always attacked, legends, or Finn Balor, who was on his way to go take a break. This is Braun Strowman, who's still around, and I don't think he's going to take that lying down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that going on in the future. I think my last favorite thing I want to talk about is the tag team match that happened last night. I don't keep it a secret that I love Nikki Cross. She's one of my favorite women on the roster. I personally have enjoyed Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross's team, their formation of a team. And I think her match with Sasha really showed that the WWE sees very highly of Nikki Cross. And I'm always down for some more, Sasha versus Alexa, because there's some actual heat there. So I really think that WWE has really stepped up their game recently, especially Monday Night Raw, because Monday Night Raw needed to step their game up. So it's very refreshing to see the type of product that they're starting to put out right now. And I'm just looking forward to even more. So those are my thoughts, and I hope y'all hope to listen to me in the future. Thank you very much, guys.
And that was Alec there with his thoughts on Monday Night Raw. A good voice clip, that. It was a good voice clip. That's the standard there, which is good to see. I'd actually love to get Alec on for a little bit more in the future. Definitely. So you'll probably see some more Alec Miller on this show in the very near future. But that is Monday Night Raw. So, of course, that means we are now heading into SmackDown Live territory. The last ever SmackDown Live. Shane, here we go.
Welcome everyone to SmackDown Live!
Just listening to that segue then, I've just realized that I'm going to have to change that, because SmackDown Live, of course, is no longer a thing as of now. It is now purely SmackDown, or Friday Night SmackDown, whichever way you want to look at it. But yeah, that segue is now dated. It's relevant for this, so I can get away with it this week, but next week I'm going to have to change it. So hopefully somebody says something along the lines of, welcome to SmackDown. That's it. No live. Welcome to SmackDown. That's what we need. So hopefully Shane comes out and says that. He probably won't. He's not good guy Shane anymore, so he has no interest in welcoming people to his show. Absolutely not. But, of course, this is the last SmackDown Live before we head over, before WWE head over to Fox next week. And I'm not going to lie, I struggled with it this week. It was kind of like Raw. You know, both shows were really, really good last week, with SmackDown being one of the best weekly shows that WWE have thrown out in quite a long time, because it was more or less faultless. But I really struggled this week to find really anything of note. I mean, obviously there was a couple of things, but in comparison to recent weeks, yeah, it was hard. I mean, again, it was an okay show. It was okay. It wasn't great. It certainly wasn't on the level of last week. I think Raw was probably the better show this week. But that's not to say that I didn't get any highlights, because of course there was some good stuff that went down. And of course, it now a top 3 highlights. And because I barely got 4 highlights, it kind of made my job a little more easier. So the first one is kind of like, I'm going to count the entire opening of SmackDown Live as a highlight. So kicking off with that Eric Rowan promo, even though it was mostly gibberish, he was banging on about being an artist or a creator, loads of crap that really didn't really matter that much. You could have muted the thing and, you know, it wouldn't really matter. But I mean, I guess the thing you can take away from this is that Eric Rowan isn't exactly terrible on the mic, which is good. You know, he's in the spotlight now, which is really cool to see, because he's somebody that had the opportunity a few years ago as a single star, and yeah, he was just kind of in the Wyatt family shadow. It just didn't work for him. But now he's kind of got this new lease of life. He's been thrown in the spotlight once more, but this time he's actually been like majorly thrown in the spotlight. You know, before he was kind of like a kind of mid-card singles guy, and now he's on the upper echelon. He's nearly main event. Although he has been in some main event spots over the last couple of weeks, you know, purely because of this whole Roman Reigns storyline, which isn't the best storyline, but what we're getting now is kind of making up for that. But he started the show, it was gibberish promo, of course it was, but he delivered it well. So that's a highlight in its own right. But of course, Daniel Bryan then came out and issued a challenge, and then we had a match. Now, Daniel Bryan has once again proven that he is one of the best wrestlers on this planet. He can get a good match out of anybody. And Eric Rowan is no exception to that. And that's not to take away anything from Eric Rowan, of course it's not. But Daniel Bryan really, really made that match what it was. I thought it was a really solid opener. It was a good match, it really was. And again, it's good to see Eric Rowan in this position. And not only in this position, but he's picking up wins. He's beaten Roman Reigns, and now he's beaten Daniel Bryan. That's crazy. Of course, it was with help. Luke Harper both times, but that doesn't really matter. On paper, he's beaten Roman Reigns, and he's beaten Daniel Bryan in the space of 3 weeks. So that's a pretty incredible stat right there for Eric Rowan. So, but the match itself, hard hitting. Rowan looked great. Daniel Bryan was his usual fantastic self. Scary spot when his leg got caught in the rope. I didn't know. You kind of look at these spots that happen. You go, did that mean to happen? Of course it didn't, because you could see like the landing when he did the Iron Claw. He just didn't get it right, and the leg got stuck. But they handled it well. They didn't let that affect, you know, the finish to the match. You know, Rowan played up to the fact that maybe he meant to do it by, you know, giving him some, you know, the odd stomp here and there while the referee was trying to get him out the ropes. It's scary when you see stuff like that, because, you know, I don't know, the moment I saw it, I was kind of like, damn, like, it is, like, what state is his leg going to be as soon as that thing's out? Because it's, I mean, we're looking at it, after his leg had been tied in it, you kind of go, well, it's just in it. Like, it's just trapped. It's like somebody, you know, just applying pressure to your leg, but like a lot of pressure. But it's just that initial snap of getting your leg caught in there. So I did figure maybe he might have got an injury there. But he seemed to be running around, you know, after it. Maybe that was just purely because he was, you know, living on adrenaline at the time. But I haven't heard anything since to say that any injuries was happened, which is really good. It's good to see that nothing came of that. But that was essentially the ending of the match. That the Iron Claw, if he hit it right, would have been the 1-2-3, I'd imagine. But you know, regardless, he hit the Iron Claw again in the middle of the ring, this time with no issues, and picked up the 1-2-3. So very impressive victory for Eric Rowan, and of course led to another beatdown from Luke Harper and Rowan. Roman Reigns came out. I mean, this is pretty much paint by numbers from last week, except Reigns and Bryan came out on top, which I think it was needed. I don't think we needed another situation where the heels were standing tall. Didn't need that. And it led to setting up a match for Hell in a Cell, Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns versus Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. And I am a little bit excited for it, you know, looking forward to it. But there is a missed opportunity here, because I would have rather have seen Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe against Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, or Eric Rowan and Daniel Bryan at the time. Like, whichever way you look at it, I think it would have been pretty cool to see Joe and Roman team up and be on the same page, you know, even if it was just the one-off. But I can accept Daniel Bryan and Reigns together in this match. Whether this means Daniel Bryan is now, you know, a fully fledged face again, I don't know. Whether it means he's going to end up turning on Reigns at Hell in a Cell, which would be ridiculously stupid. I don't know. I am looking forward to it, but I think there is that missed opportunity with Joe that has just soured it slightly. But I've enjoyed, you know, the recent couple of weeks. We've moved past this whole, you know, murder of Roman Reigns thing, which I think was needed, because, you know, really it didn't make any sense. There was a lot. Where is that random guy that Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan pulled into that room and, you know, left him there with a bag on his head? Where's he gone? Whatever happened to him? You know, it just ended off with a stare off, and then where? What happened to that? You know, it's stuff like that just made the whole thing stupid. But we're past that now. Luke Harper's in. Daniel Bryan and Reigns are kind of on the same page now. Eric Rowan's looking awesome. It's good. The storyline is now good, so we can forget about all the other stuff that went down. This is where I struggle, because for me, there wasn't that many highlights. There really wasn't. I'm going to go with Kofi's interview with Michael Cole as a highlight. And WWE have been really good with these recently. They've done quite a few, you know, in the last couple of weeks. And they got to be careful not to overdo it, because if they overdo it, you know, like WWE tend to do, it'll ruin it. It will ruin it. Too many of it, and you'll be like, oh, here we go, another interview. You know, whatever. But Kofi looked really, I say he looked really good as if he was wrestling. No, he came across really well. He kind of made you believe a little bit that he might come away with the win. I don't think he will, personally, but, you know, the confidence was there, which was really good to see. But what I came away with from that whole interview is the fact that Kofi has sold this match next week. Just with this interview alone, just how he came across, how he talked, made it all sound, you know, like he was capable of besting the Beast. And it's made me excited for next week. I was excited anyway. I know they had their match in, I'm going to say it was Beast in the East, where they faced off with each other. I might be wrong, but they have squared off before. But of course, that was Brock in full squash mode, and Kofi was Kofi a heel at the time? We might still have been in heel New Day territory. And it was ultimately a squash. But I don't think that's going to be the case next week. I think it's going to be a pretty competitive match, hopefully, because Brock works really well with the smaller guys. So there's absolutely no reason not to have a little bit of optimism going into the first SmackDown on Fox and this WWE Championship match, day one on Fox. I think it's going to be a show stealer, and I'm looking forward to it. And you know, this interview, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Sold the match for me. Excited. And my last highlight was I honestly didn't know what to go with. It was either going to be Charlotte and Carmella against Bayley and Banks, or it was going to be Nakamura versus Ali. And because of the booking side of Ali Nakamura, I've gone for the women's tag because it did everything that it needed to do, and the booking was perfect. Charlotte didn't take a pin, Bayley didn't take a pin, and Banks was the one made to get the victory for her team. So she looks strong still going into the go home shows next week, but ultimately going into Hell in a Cell, she's looking strong still. So she's looked good ever since she got back, and that obviously continued with this victory over Carmella this week. And that was the thing. Carmella was in there, and she was the one that ate the submission, which was definitely the right call. You can't have Charlotte, eating a submission at this point or eating a pin at this point, because I don't know what's happening with Charlotte at the moment. I don't know if she's going to face off against Bayley at Hell in a Cell. I don't know if Carmella's going to be entered into that, because Bayley wasn't the one that pinned Carmella or made Carmella tap out. It was Sasha Banks. So that thing is still open. It's an interesting, kind of direction they're going with this, in that I don't know where they're going with this. With Sasha and Becky, it's clear. And that, of course, that was made even more apparent by, what happened after the match when Becky came down, made the save. It's more, where does Bayley go? Is she getting Charlotte? Is she getting Carmella? Or is she getting both of them? I think it's going to be both of them, but we'll see. There's only a week from Sunday until Hell in a Cell. So there's not that much time left to build this up. But the match itself was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it did exactly what it needed to do. Showcased everybody where they needed to be showcased. And that's all you can really ask for. I didn't go with the Nakamura Ali one because, the booking was a little bit poor. I don't know. I haven't had a look at the text yet. That obviously I looked at them when I prepped them, but somebody might have mentioned this about the Ali Nakamura situation. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I read something about it, how the booking was poor. And I agree. It was. Save this match for Hell in a Cell. It's next week. It's literally next week. So you could have saved it. But instead, Ali's eating the pin. You had a potential match at Hell in a Cell for the Intercontinental Championship, and you blew it. You could have had Ali versus Sami Zayn and have Ali best Zayn. And then that would have fed nicely into Hell in a Cell, Ali Nakamura, Intercontinental Championship, and it would have been a great match. But no, this is what we got. But that was really all my highlights for SmackDown. I honestly don't have that much more to give with SmackDown. Like I said, the Nakamura Ali match itself was good. The match was good. It was just the booking wasn't good. And Owens and Shane, their little segment, it was short and sweet, which was perfect. The perfect amount of time, because I think it's starting to drag. It's been dragging for a little bit now, but I guess it's a unique twist on it. We're going to get a ladder match next week, and it will determine whether Owens stays fired or Shane gets fired. So, we've got that to look forward to. Hopefully, Owens will win. Come on. You can't have Shane winning this thing, surely. Unless it means Kevin Owens stays fired and then moves to, either moves to NXT, or in the draft, the opposing brand will go, well, Shane was the one, or he was technically fired on SmackDown, so we'll just take him over to Raw. I don't know how it's going to play. I don't even know if we're getting general managers or anything like that. I honestly don't know how it's going to play. But it was short and sweet. It was a good segment. Well done. I loved it when Shane's mic got cut off right at the end before he could accept. It was all very rushed. You could tell, because they needed to finish off with the Sasha beatdown of Becky at the end there. But honestly, just saying okay, I think, would sum SmackDown Live up this week perfectly. It was just okay. But what did you guys think of SmackDown Live this week? Let's just flash up the tweets that I've pre-prepped. Ernest Christian said, love what they're doing with Eric Rowan's character. He's getting some natural heat as evidenced by the beginning of SmackDown Live. He's doing his job correctly as a heel. Plus, I love how he reps metal on a weekly basis, repping the Killswitch Engage tee. And yeah, that's what I kind of said. Eric Rowan's finally getting in the spotlight and being able to showcase, stuff that we maybe didn't realize that he had. He's coming into his own as a big man. Like a big man wrestler, big wrestler. And I'm enjoying his run so far, so I don't think there's longevity with Eric Rowan, to be honest. But for now, doing exactly what he's doing now, it's working. Absolutely working. Ryan Buckley said, another Owens and McMahon match. I'm not interested in this storyline at all. And this is what I mean. It's dragged on a little bit now, and SummerSlam was the conclusion. It should have been the conclusion. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But, I mean, hopefully next week, regardless who wins, obviously Kevin would be the ideal person, but regardless of who wins, hopefully that just puts this whole thing to bed. But we'll see. Laz, who is at Legit Coast 305, just finished watching SmackDown Live. It was okay. And there you go. I think that's the tweet I mentioned earlier. I don't know. I just winged this thing where they said it was just okay. And this is exactly. There isn't a more suitable word than okay to sum up SmackDown. So Laz, completely with you there. Patrick's Place. So I didn't live tweet during SmackDown Live last night. I thought the show was fine. By the numbers, nothing special. I'm very interested in seeing what the first show on Fox brings. So again, it was this was the last SmackDown Live that we're ever going to have. Like this iteration of SmackDown is over. It's done. And you would have thought that they would have gone out with a bang. But I guess they're saving up everything for next week, which isn't a bad thing. Next week is a huge night for SmackDown and WWE. So, of course, their focus is on that. But it would have been a nice little send-off to SmackDown Live, Tuesday nights, maybe even just thrown together like a highlight reel of, what's happened since 2016 up until now. I think it was 2016 when it started. And that would have been an interesting thing to do, but, absolutely right. Yeah, it was by the numbers, nothing special. It wasn't bad, but it was nothing special, so I'm with you there. Mafiosa Live said, hopefully this is the end of the Shane McMahon era on SmackDown. I don't mind him being on TV or even wrestling, but he shouldn't be the top guy, and he's been in that spot for far too long. He's 50. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I've said it on this podcast numerous times. I don't mind Shane, but ultimately he has wrestled far too much this year. And some of it has been at the detriment of whoever he's faced. The Miz didn't benefit from facing Shane. Kevin Owens started to benefit by facing Shane, but now not so much. We'll see what happens next week, but it's soured. It has soured. But I don't think the age is the thing, because I know there are some 50-year-old wrestlers that can still go. But here's the thing: Shane McMahon isn't a wrestler, so I guess that comes into play here. Finally, Alex Batt said 0 interest in Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns teaming up to face Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. 0. And I can see where you're coming from. I absolutely can, because, people know how dreadful this storyline has been so far, prior to Luke Harper coming in. And this is kind of what I look back on when I said there's a missed opportunity with having Reigns and Joe team together against Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan. I think that would have been, a pretty cool thing to do. But it wasn't what we got. This is where we are now. We're getting Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns teaming up against, Harper and Rowan. And it is what it is. I am looking forward to it. I think it'll be all right. There was just a bigger match to be had. But that's what you guys thought of SmackDown. Mixed bag. Not universal praise like has been the norm recently. Voice clip wise, I had one Sam Preston coming on this week to do a voice clip, but unfortunately, technical issues. SmackDown is cursed on this show when it comes to voice clips. Technical snags always get in the way. So he'll be on next month at some point to provide a voice clip, but there are no voice clips for SmackDown this week, so my apologies for that. But what that does mean is that we can segue straight into my chat with one Omega Luke about our favorite wrestler, The Rock. It's a fun chat. We talk our favorite moments. Here we go. Joining me now is Omega Luke from the Guyconics podcast, which is also part of the Brainbuster Radio podcast network. Hello, Luke. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm very good, thank you, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm even better the fact that you've come to the rescue this week, because I have completely fucked up with... I was supposed to have a wrestler on right now, so everybody listening to this, you should be listening to an interview with a wrestler. However, I got the time zones wrong. So that was a big oops on my part. So I wasn't able to get anything recorded. So Omega Luke has come to the rescue this week. So you have something interesting to hear on the show.
Yeah, thankfully, mate, Plymouth is in the same time zone, so there was no confusion, was there?
But the only downside to you coming to the rescue now, it's great that the time zones are good. However, it is currently 5-1 in the morning, so this shows how I am cutting it. And I don't think there's anybody else in this country that I would be able to get on that would be up at this time. I am a night owl, and you are an owl, more or less.
I am. So, yeah. Very nocturnal. It's true.
It kind of fits.
It does, yeah. I mean, I'm off from work for a week, so whenever I'm off from work, I always stay up late. I make the most of time to myself when the missus goes to bed. I like to get things done when she goes to bed. So perfect timing for me, really. I like to stay up late, just like yourself tonight, even though you do actually have work tomorrow. So I do not envy you.
I do. I don't actually help myself when I come to podcasting, because I like to spend as much time as I can with the family, and then when they go to bed, I'm the same as you. When they go to bed, I can come up and then just crack on and do everything. But by now, I would have my guest spot done. I'd have SmackDown recorded. By the way, as we're recording this, I don't even have my SmackDown bit sorted. So
you got a lot to do.
Oh boy, it's going to be a very you'll be able to tell. It won't be as in depth. Thankfully, SmackDown wasn't that great this week. So
yeah, I mean, I haven't actually seen it, but I haven't seen a bit of a buzz about it. So normally when it's a good show, you see a lot of people talking about it. So maybe, it's maybe you have a short one today, mate.
Yeah, I mean, as people are listening to this, I've already done the SmackDown highlights. You'll get the gist of what we're talking about right now. But that's the highlights. We don't need to worry about that. That's all been and gone at this point. You're on because we share a favorite wrestler between the two of us, and it's not surprising because we are of the same age. We kind of entered wrestling around the same time, and this is a guy that got us both into it. And this bears absolutely no relevance to what's going on. Like, this guy hasn't done anything. I mean, obviously he's like one of the busiest men in the world, but in wrestling wise, there's no reason for me to go, right, that's relevant now, let's talk about it. But the guy is just so amazing. As a wrestler, he was fantastic. What he's doing now is fantastic. That I guess he's always in some form of relevancy. So fuck it. We're going to talk about it. And this has been planned for so many months now. I think 2 months ago I approached you to come on and talk about this. But we're finally getting around to it at midnight on I say a Wednesday night. It's now Thursday morning. We're talking about our favorite Rock moments today, because I'd say it's a passion. Would you say The Rock is a passion of yours, when it comes to wrestling?
I mean, yeah, he's the reason why I like wrestling. He will never be replaced to me as my favorite wrestler. He obviously, I never even watched him when he came back and faced Cena. Like, I wasn't even into wrestling then. It didn't like intrigue me to come back and watch wrestling, because I'm always of like the ilk of like, I liked him when he was then, and I didn't hear many good things about when he came back, so it never like intrigued me to come back. I was happy with the memories I had as a kid watching The Rock week in, week out on telly before he became this big Hollywood star. And don't get me wrong, I love a good Rock film. Like Dwayne Johnson, probably one of my favorite actors as well. He's not just an incredible wrestler, and obviously everyone knows him now through Hollywood who didn't watch wrestling. So, but yeah, he's never going to be replaced for me.
And that's the thing. Like, for me, The Rock, when you look back at how he was in the ring and the guys that we have now, regardless of promotion, there are guys now who are 10 times the better wrestler that The Rock was in ring. But when it comes to character, when it comes to his charisma, promo skills, his in-ring stuff was good. It's just you look now and just things have just kind of escalated to like massive levels, which is the standard in ring. But that was never my thing with The Rock. He had the moves, which were, you know, your spine buster, your Samoan drop, your people's elbow, the rock bottom, the sharpshooter, all that kind of stuff. He didn't really need any more than that. Exactly, just his signature stuff. He didn't. I mean, look at Cena. Look how successful he's been, and you know, I air quote it.
Poor
the
moveset,
5 moves of doom.
Yeah,
but it worked. So
I mean, that's the thing. Even with like The Rock, one of his favorite moves he used to do was the slaps. So he used to slap him a couple of times, and he'd look at his hand and then slap him again. Just simple things like that I loved about The Rock.
And that was the thing.
His character, wasn't it? That's what it was all about. Was his character? He was good in the ring. He wasn't. We're not talking like Ultimate Warrior standards in the ring. Like he was good in the ring. No matter, you know, he had the charisma and everything, and the promos to back up everything. But he was decent in the ring. He could hold his own, but he wasn't a Bret Hart or a Shawn Michaels. He didn't have like the match quality of those guys back then, and certainly the match quality that people have nowadays. But yeah, he had everything else and more.
And I think that is ultimately. I mean, I say that's what drew us in. It was the whole package with The Rock. That's what you kind of had to look at. Just nothing that guy did, I didn't like. And I don't know whether that's just because I was a naive, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid who, didn't know any better. But looking back, I mean, I go on YouTube at least once a week to look at old Rock stuff. It's always in my suggestions. So I go, oh, that looks interesting. I haven't seen that for a while. I'll flash that up. And never do I not laugh at the stuff I laughed at, 5 years ago when I looked at it, 10 years ago when I looked at it. Even if I watched the same thing last week, I will still laugh at it. Like, The Rock is absolutely hilarious and so entertaining. And what I really wanted to do was just kind of go through our top Rock moments because, I mean, there are so many, but I'm just curious to see what your top Rock moments are in comparison to mine, because I think we do share the same opinion when it comes to The Rock. He brought us both in to wrestling. We both share the same opinion. We were aware that he's not, a Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in the ring. We're aware of that, but we can acknowledge everything else that made The Rock great. So I am interested to see what your favorite Rock moments are. So I'm going to let you kick things off as the guest.
Right. Okay. So I think it's
in no particular order, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be no surprise that a lot of it is not going to be any matches, and it's literally just going to be promos.
Yes,
because he is the king of promos. I mean, people talk about how good certain people were on the mic, like the Ric Flairs of the time, and even Stone Cold to some degree. But to me, I mean, there is no one anywhere near the league of The Rock on the microphone. So I think all of my favorite moments are The Rock on the microphone talking shit. And one of the ones that stands out is the promo that he does leading up to the Armageddon match, the Hell in a Cell, when it's like 6 of them in the match, and he basically goes through and he trash talks every single one. He does an impression for every single one. He talks like this for Triple H, and he does the Undertaker's stupid eyes, and he talks about Rikishi being a thong-wearing fatty and stuff like that.
That is the best one.
It is the best one. And that promo I've seen time and time again, and every time I'm belly laughing watching it. It is amazing.
You just got me thinking about it now. It's just
I did it for The Rock.
I did.
Oh, shut up, you thong-wearing fatty.
It's amazing, isn't it? And it's just the timing, the speed of it. Whether he I don't get whether he practices it before, whether it's like just off the cuff, and he's almost like would be an extremely good rapper because he can just think of these things off the top of his head. I don't get it, but whatever it is, it's a talent because I couldn't, even if I wrote things down, I won't be able to read it off that quick. He does it from memory, and it's unbelievable. The time in every single one is perfect.
And everything was always so fresh. Like, even if he was, like, recycling, so he'd always go on about The Undertaker's, like, I can't remember how many pounds he described it as, but it was such a many pounds head and his Mickey Mouse tattoos. Like, he'd always go on about that, but he could always, like, spin it in a different way. And I just thinking about that promo. He's like, I'll drink a couple of Steve Weisers and go and listen to some Backstreet Boys.
Yeah. I still call Budweiser Steve Weisers to this day. I still do. But sometimes, like, I forget who I'm with, and, like, say I'm drinking with my dad or something. But, Dad, you got any Steve Weisers? He's like, I've got any what? Sorry, Budweisers. Because it's my favourite beer as well. And then he calls it Steve Weisers. I do like a Budweiser.
Or a Steve Weiser.
Or a Steve Weiser, yeah. We're going to have to go out for some Steve Weisers soon, mate. And,
we are.
It just gets stuck in my head now every time I think about Budweisers because of that one promo.
I wonder if we did have like a Dits Omega evening out on the tiles in this glorious Plymouth city that we live in, if we ordered a Steve Weiser, would the barman or barmaid deliver a Budweiser? They might do just by default because they'll hear the Weiser, but
yeah.
Would they do it and kind of play along to it? That's what I'm curious about, because everyone knows the Attitude Era, mostly. So you think that somebody might go and bust out like an old catchphrase, maybe? That would pop me.
I'll go mental for it. I'd buy them a drink.
Yeah.
I would buy them a drink.
I'm gonna watch that promo as soon as we come off. I know I've got a lot to do before this thing hits the streets, but priorities, mate. I'm gonna prioritize The Rock over anything.
You got to.
But that was an absolutely fantastic promo, and you'll find that as we're talking here, a lot of my stuff is going to be based on what I'm about to talk about now. I love The Rock as a face. The thing is, The Rock could be a face or a heel. It wouldn't really matter because he's entertaining regardless. And when he was a heel, you loved to hate him, but it was still hilarious no matter what he did. And, as a face, despite the fact that he, gave everybody shit all the time, which is a little bit of a heel thing to do, he was just so damn entertaining at doing it, we just didn't care. But a lot of my stuff that I remember The Rock for is his heel stuff when he came back from being in the Scorpion King. I don't know why they seem to just be the moments that just stick in my mind. I can name so many occasions that, whether it's the Rock concerts, which were always an absolute treat, but the one I'm thinking of is the few segments, the very short feud that he did with the Hurricane. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
Oh, like I actually put a tweet out about this like months ago. Now it must have been about half a year ago, and the Hurricane retweeted, commented on it, and I just put like, this is genuinely one of the most funniest things that I've seen on Raw or anything in WWE ever. And he acknowledged it, and he said, absolutely. Well, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I absolutely agree. Had so much fun with this. So that the Hurricane acknowledging that, I mean, he doesn't need to acknowledge it because we all know just how entertaining that short little feud was. But there was so much stuff in there that calling the Hurricane the Hamburglar, and it was kind of like this: the Scorpion King versus the Hurricane. And then the Hurricane hiding in the locker, and he's saying he's seen The Rock's tiny little ding-a-ling. It was just, it was. So,
that's the
so
thing
brilliant.
with the thing is with The Rock, like you couldn't put someone like The Undertaker with the Hurricane. It would just like it's a not very realistic feud. Stone Cold, maybe you could have, but like people who are like legends of wrestling. Some of them you couldn't do that with, but The Rock you could put with anyone. Like you could legitimately put him with anyone, and that's why he works so well with Mankind, and he had great feuds with people like the Hurricane, and then as serious people like Shamrock when he first came in, and stuff like that. That was the beauty of him. You could just mix him with anyone, and it would work. Like comedic wise, seriousness, it just worked every time.
That's the thing. That's exactly what made The Rock and Austin such a incredible rivalry. The fact that they could jump between, serious and comedy. Like I take I can't remember if it was the Raw before the winner takes all match at Survivor Series Alliance versus WWF, but they did that little sing along in the middle of the ring, which was amazing. And then it got serious at the end. It was like The Rock will never ever forget, and then rock bottom, and then brawl ensues. But that whole build up to that was just comedy, funny. I mean, Austin himself is hilarious when he wants to be. But, but his funniest moments, I think, come against The Rock. And that exactly, that's what like you said, you throw anybody with a rock, magic.
Yeah.
And Austin was a huge part of that.
Instant magic, yeah. And you think about like the people he's worked with backstage as well. I mean, Coach wouldn't be as famous if it wasn't for The Rock.
I'm just thinking, everything he made Coach do, where he was dancing and then just fucking belting him away.
He was doing the Charleston.
Yeah, the Charleston. Or making Michael Cole wear his T-shirt on his head.
Oh, God, yeah. When he was interviewing with a T-shirt on the head. Amazing.
Or even talking about Poontang Pie with Lillian and saying she likes the strudel. I mean, come on. Like, nobody...
Are you looking at the Rock strudel?
Nobody comes close to him. I honestly don't think anybody... Maybe Jericho, actually.
Jericho was close.
But again, they're close, two guys that work really well together.
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously, Jericho's debut was interrupting The Rock, and then, like, The Rock just, like, annihilating him for about 5 minutes on the microphone. Like, what an entrance that is.
But it makes me wonder how much of that was improv, because obviously, scripts weren't as big of a thing back then as they are now. So The Rock, we've already just mentioned it, but... he could go off script and improv absolutely everything if he wanted to, and it would still be an absolute classic. You would be able to quote absolutely everything he did. But such a huge segment. I mean, when you look back at Raw moments, I usually find in lists that hits the top 10, Jericho's debut. It was huge, and especially a guy coming over from WCW. I mean, that was massive, obviously, at the time of the Monday Night Wars. So it makes me wonder just how much of his stuff did he improv during that whole segment, because it's a risk. But then again, is it a risk because it's The fucking Rock?
Yeah, it's just like, we got a Rock promo, let him have 10 minutes. What's he going to talk about? I don't know, it's The Rock, let him do whatever he wants.
And I hope it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But imagine if The Rock just listens to this. It's just us for like what could be like half an hour of us just blowing smoke up his ass.
He probably gets it a lot, to be fair, mate.
Yeah,
he probably gets it a lot.
To be like, he is like one of the like good guys. Like, it's not put on, it's not fake. And you'll probably find that being in WWE, with the fans that we have or had at the time, I think fans have changed a lot over the years. But the fans we had back then, that's probably helped him, with how he is now. Because he is just a humble bloke, and he'll do anything for fans. Like, if he's got like a group of people like outside of his hotel, and he just happens to be going past, like, he'll get out of his car and he'll sign some autographs and take some pictures every single time. It's mental.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of my best friends, Nev, is the Rock Cry guy, the one that was on the viral video for Jimmy Fallon.
Yes, I saw that. Yes,
he is like a Rock idol. He idolizes him so much. And then he and his wife was on their honeymoon, went on the Jimmy Fallon ride to test the ride. And then The Rock and Jimmy Fallon like came out of like these outfits, and he like broke down in tears. He's got like The Rock tattooed on his leg and stuff. And he was basically saying like, well, he's told us quite a lot of times, obviously we've asked him about it quite a lot. And he spent like 20 to 25 minutes with The Rock after, just talking to him about his family and stuff like that, and how much he means to him. And he said, honestly, he just gave him the time to chat to him and stuff like that. And he then like gave his Instagram to The Rock's agent, which at the time was his ex-wife's brother, I believe. I can't remember what he's called now. He's quite a famous bloke as well, to be fair. And Nev was sort of saying like after that, like he's been sent different stuff from The Rock, all signed and everything like that. He had a parcel about 2 months ago, just full of The Rock stuff, and this was like 2 years on. And then he did a video The Rock on YouTube where someone mentioned Nev, the Rock Cry guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, his name's Michael. He was there with his wife Jess. They were on their honeymoon." This is like months later. He remembers him. He remembers every bit of detail from him. He was saying, "Yeah, he's got a lovely family and that," and it was just like how amazing. He meets so many people. His life is so busy. He's one of the busiest people on the planet, but yet he remembers all these minor details about this one fan that met him.
And it's not like he has like a bit of paper just off camera where he's just like, you just see his eyes shifting over going, that's his name. Like it's just pure, which is like, I mean, like you said, like he is one of the busiest guys on this planet. Like of course you do. Of course you follow him on Instagram. Like you watch all the stuff he does, every single video I watch, and like, just the amount of stuff he's doing. So it's a massive credit to him to, even just remember his name, never mind everything else that came with it. So, I mean, I am jealous. I'm not going to lie. And I'm sure you are hell of a jealous.
Hugely jealous. Another moment that always sticks out to me because I've watched it recently about 3 or 4 times was, I don't know if you remember, but it was when WWE first did the draft split. Vince McMahon comes out and he is head of SmackDown, and his first pick is The Rock. And The Rock, I don't know whether he has just come back at this point or something, but he was a face. And The Rock comes out, massive ovation, and Vince then tries like acting like he's gonna like take control of The Rock, and then The Rock cuts a 7-minute promo on Vince McMahon, and the crowd are amazing for it. And it gets to the point where he has got one half of the crowd singing "You're," and the other half of the crowd singing "Asshole," and he just keeps pointing to each one, and they're just shouting it at Vince McMahon, and it is amazing. You have to watch that one.
It's funny you just mentioned that because with Dits versus Josh, my other venture, we did a watch along to start off our little war between each other, and it was a watch along of that draft. And I remember watching it, and throughout the night, whenever Vince came back out to do another pick, the crowd would just carry on with the "You are an asshole." It was it's so good.
It's outstanding. He controls the crowd in the palm of his hands.
And honestly, I don't think there's anybody since who can do. I honestly don't think there's anybody else since that can do that or has done that. Not that I can think of.
No.
Everybody just... when The Rock comes out, everyone's just like, right, here we go. Even when he was a heel and everyone booed him, like, regardless, everyone was hanging off his every word. And I think that... it's just... When I think of heel Rock, I don't know, there's just something about The Rock being a dick that I don't know, I just find it more entertaining than when he was a face. Because like I said, when he was a face, he would talk shit to people, but it was so entertaining that, he was just a face by default, I guess.
Yeah.
But when he was a heel, he was more or less just doing the same stuff. But he was just doing it in a more cocky, arrogant, just dickheadish way. And I don't know, there was just something about that just added an extra layer onto The Rock and just made him so much more entertaining. Like the stuff with Hogan when he came back and he was just absolutely ripping the piss out of him, doing his little impression, and like, "What you gonna do?" all that stuff. Like,
I think as well, you got the benefit of both with The Rock because as a face, you get the crowd reaction. You get when he's talking about being the people's champion and the people singing The Rock's name and stuff like that, and all things like that. It's more like cool as fuck. Like, imagine going up to a crowd of what back then was like 20,000 people, and be like, and if you be quiet, you'll hear the crowd singing The Rock's name, and then all of a sudden they all start singing Rocky, Rocky. Like, that's cool as fuck moments. But then when the heel is when you get like the funny, just ripping the piss out of people moments, which you probably wouldn't get as much if he was a face. So he was very good at doing like really good stuff for both.
And that's the thing, he could hold the audience in the palm of his hands, but at the same time, whilst he's got them in his hands, he could just fucking crunch them up and just throw them away. Like, he'd get them doing the Rocky chants, but then he would put them down immediately, saying, "Nah, you can't chant the Rock's name," and all this stuff. Because people have turned their back on him and all that kind of good stuff. Oh, it's just so good. But we cannot talk about top Rock moments without talking about This Is Your Life.
Oh,
Because,
Amazing.
wow. I don't know. I mean, I still think that it's the highest viewed segment in Raw history. Am I right in saying that?
I think you are right. Yeah, outside of a match, I think it is. Yeah.
Which all these years, I mean, I know that more people used to watch wrestling back then, but still, that is an impressive stat, an impressive record, and it's tried to be. People have tried to emulate it since. We had the horrendous Bailey "This Is Your Life" segment, which was a car wreck. Nothing with it. You could have like the two best, most charismatic people on the roster, and I would try and think of a name, but I can't be bothered. It's 1:20 in the morning. But nobody would even come close to marrying up to what Mankind and The Rock did with that whole "This Is Your Life" segment. Just Mankind bringing everybody out, thinking The Rock is just going to love it, and The Rock just kind of going, nah, fuck this. Just berate them, make them feel shit, and then send them packing, and then the next person would come out. The whole segment was just unbelievable. And I think it went like really long.
20 minutes, I think it was in the end. It was supposed to be like 8 or 9.
That was it, yeah, because it was on. I was listening to Bruce Pritchard talking about it, and he said exactly like Vince was getting really pissed off with it. That it was dragging on, but it dragged on regardless, and obviously it ended up being a hit. And I think Vince actually apologized for giving them shit as soon as they came back through the curtain, because of course it was the highest rated fucking segment in Raw history at the time, and still is. So eat your heart out, Vince, because you can't doubt The Rock. Like, The Rock comes in, he's been out there for 20 minutes. So what? Just eat time off one of the crappy little bra and panties matches you were going to throw together. Does it really matter? Give The Rock the fucking spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only thing we've ever had that come close to it is the Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, the best friend thing.
Oh, the Festival of Friendship.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's really come close. And with two, like we said then, we could find the two most charismatic people. Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens are up there.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
They come close, but it's not The Rock, is it? That's the thing. It's not The Rock. And like you say, when he brings out like his old teacher and stuff like that, and then he just like says really nice stuff to her and then just sends her packing and stuff like that. It's just amazing TV. Like, it's coming, but it's just still so good. And then eventually, when obviously he finally tells Mankind that his birthday's in May, and it was like in November that he was doing it. It also shows how great Mick Foley is.
Because Mick's just as good at improv, exactly. Yeah, and he's got his own stand-up show, so he's doing something right when it comes to comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy that plays a deluded, damaged psycho, to playing a hippie called Dude Love, to playing just a absolute badass in Cactus Jack. Like, that takes somebody with some comedic power and, well, just a fucked up mind, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But, like, again, it falls into that whole thing of you can put The Rock with anybody and it'll work.
Of course, yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things that's just popped into my head whilst we've been going through this, I don't know if you remember it. It is probably one of the, when people think of, like, funny Rock moments, like with the promos and stuff, was the one he did. I think Billy Gunn had just won King of the Ring, and he was in the ring, and he cut the promo acting as Billy Gunn having a conversation with God. Do you remember that one?
Oh my God, yeah, I do now, yeah.
But my name's Billy. And I've just won King of the Ring, but nobody seems to give a damn, or something like that.
It's just so priceless, isn't it? Like, how does he think of these things?
Oh,
I don't get it. Like, the impressions were just so funny when he was just mocking people.
Oh,
it's just brilliant.
Yeah, the Kane's voice box as well, that comes to mind.
Oh, God, the voice box, yeah.
I am a Rudy Poo candy ass. This is the thing. Like, we could literally just, you could spend like 2 hours, you could spend a 3-hour, 4-hour podcast on just funny Rock moments. Like, I don't think you could, ever run out. But, like, moments wise, like, outside of promos, and skits and all that kind of stuff. Like, match-wise, what was your favorite Rock match?
So mine is always, and it's only because of the year that I watched it, and it was like my first proper Rock match. But it was actually, and it's a really bad one to be fair. It's The Rock versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 15. So it's a bad WrestleMania. It's the first match between them two, and Rock actually loses. And it's when JR has suffered from Bell's palsy, but they bring him back just for that match. The Rock and Stone Cold request it to be JR instead of Michael Cole, and he comes back, and it's a bit of it's a DQ match, I think, and it's not a very good match, and he does lose. But that is my favorite Rock match, just because it was like one of my first matches that I watched live as a kid, and well, not live, but like when it happened as a kid. And it's one that sticks out because I had it on video as well, so I watched the shit out of it. And it is my favorite Rock match. There obviously has been better ones, like the match against Triple H a year before, I think at SummerSlam. Was it a ladder match? It might have been a ladder match.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a hell of a good match. That was a really good rivalry too against Triple H. Like, no one really talks about it, but that was such a good rivalry. And obviously, just for crowd reaction alone, the match at WrestleMania 18 against Hogan.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that was like this is again the Rock's genius, thinking on the spot. Like, the crowd were against him, so he went, "Fuck it, I'm playing heel."
Yeah, and just changing it completely around.
And yeah, when did I last watch that? I think it was literally only maybe 2 months ago. I sat and watched that, and it's aged well. Like, I still enjoy. Yeah. I still enjoy watching it. It's not my favorite though. It is up there, to be fair, just through crowd reaction alone. But mine's an obvious one because for me, this is the first match I actually remember him in. In fact, I think my first exposure to The Rock was that I Quit match with Mankind, where he was, smacking, 15,000 unprotected headshots.
Yeah.
I don't know, a 9-year-old kid, maybe I was a bit sadistic back then, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. But my actual first proper match that I remember The Rock in was Austin Rock, WrestleMania 17. That's the fun stuff, because I remember I bought the WWE magazine, and it was the whole feature and results on WrestleMania 17. I remember reading about it and then watching it, and I was like, "Fucking, this is so good!" And I every single year. I only watch it once a year, but every single year around WrestleMania season, I do make a habit of going back and watching it, because it's in my top 3 just because of the nostalgia of it, and it just brings me back to when I was a kid. But another match that sticks out for me it's one that goes under the radar quite a lot, and I think it's the only time they faced off with each other. It was on a Raw, and you could add this to the promo section. It's his match against Eddie Guerrero. When he was still Latino. I think Eddie Guerrero had gone away and then just come back.
Right, when he returned. Yeah,
so he wasn't like the Eddie Guerrero where he was at his peak. Like Los Guerreros. He hadn't that wasn't a thing yet. I think he'd just come back. This was around the time he was feuding with RVD for the IC title, Edge over on SmackDown. I think it was around that period. But he had a match with The Rock. The promo before the match was brilliant. Like, The Rock, if you can look it up, just go back and watch it, because it's just The Rock rinsing the shit out of Eddie Guerrero. But the match that he actually had was brilliant. Like, the promo he sings to Eddie Guerrero, it's like I forget it's in my head, but I just can't fucking project it. It's like it's a Mexican thing, like arriba, something like that. And he's just completely ripping him. But the match itself was actually really, really good, and nobody talks about it.
I can't say I remember it, to be fair.
Either in my head, I'm thinking it was a lot better than it actually was. But for some reason, like, that's always a match that I go, that was amazing. And it's always stuck with me for some reason. And that's not an obvious one. I mean, an obvious one, which was good as well, and selfless, was his Brock Lesnar match at SummerSlam 2002, I want to say.
Where he puts him over.
Yeah, where he puts him over clean as well. And I really enjoyed that match as well. And this is what I mean. Like, he wasn't... like we said right at the start, he's not the best in ring, but he doesn't have to be to produce such good matches like he has, and he has a whole back catalog of great matches. And like promos, we could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours about how many great matches he's had as well. So, but I'd say the ones I've mentioned are my favorite ones. This is the thing as well. I'm looking back at WrestleMania 15. I think I've only watched that match once, but for some reason I think it's good. I don't know why. Maybe
it's okay.
I might have half-arsed it when I was watching it. I must have done.
Yeah, the trouble is, it's a really bad WrestleMania, but because it was one of my only videos that I had of wrestling, I watched it so much. I have like a really soft spot for it, and whenever someone like says, "Oh, that's a crap WrestleMania," I'm always defending it, even though I know it's a bad WrestleMania, because the one before it and then the one after it are really good WrestleManias. So I always defend it, even though I really shouldn't. But it's an okay match. It's definitely not the best out of the 3. Personally, I think the one which he wins is the best out of 3. And WrestleMania 17 is not actually. I watched it not so long ago. It gets remembered as like one of the best WrestleMania matches ever. But when I watched the match, I thought it's not necessarily a good match. It's the hype around it, and obviously the WrestleMania 17 is the best WrestleMania in a lot of people's opinions.
Yeah.
The promo package of Linkin Park My Way for The Rock Austin is easily the best promo package you have ever seen and will ever see for a wrestling match. And I think like people just remember that match as just being extremely good, just for those sort of reasons, and rightfully so. Like it deserves to be remembered in that way, not in my horrible way of devouring everyone's memory of that and saying actually it's a really crap match. But I mean, that's so memorable. But I do actually have, just in case you were gonna end things there, one more promo moment which I saved for last, which is easily my favorite Rock promo. So, do you remember when Stone Cold was run over by the Rock's car, and it obviously turned out to be Rikishi? Michael Cole is interviewing the Rock backstage, and as he's interviewing the Rock backstage, 2 policemen approach the Rock and question him about his car.
Oh,
do you remember this promo?
The donuts.
The donuts, that's right. Oh, so what's your favorite donut? Jelly. Oh, jelly. You like jelly? That's a good one. It is the best promo ever.
I think that the one thing that sticks out at me is just the way he says it. He goes, "And what's your favorite donut?"
Yeah, and he says, "Write this down. You like writing things down." And it is brilliant. It is so good. Squeeze all the jelly out. Squeeze all out. Write this down. You like writing things down. It is the best promo ever. It's so good.
You know what I'm going to do off the back of this? Because there's so many that
you just have to say like one little tiny bit from a promo and the whole thing comes flooding back. I think I'm going to go on Twitter at some point in the next week. I'm just going to do an entire thread of Rock moments and promos and stuff like that, just so I always have. I'll put it in one of those Twitter moment things, and I'll just have it there for everybody to enjoy. But it's more for me and you. We'll pop it.
You make sure you tag me in that, please.
Absolutely, I will get around to doing that because I think people need to be reminded.
Oh yes,
absolutely.
100%.
You like writing things down?
Oh, so funny.
So
it's
funny.
Outstanding.
Oh, I mean that. To be fair, that. To save that one for last is good, because I had it was a VHS.
Yeah,
so it was a while ago. My grandma got me I think it was called the People's Champion, and it was literally, I think it was it had that segment on it. It had the Armageddon promo. It had the Billy Gunn, God Conversation. It had basically.
I have this on DVD.
Oh, This Is Your Life. It had that as well. It had all these great moments. And yeah, we've pretty much just listed them all. So that is the highlight. I need to find that. I think I actually still own that somewhere.
Yeah, I've got that on DVD somewhere, where it's literally just all like it's just got a full disc just dedicated to promos.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting that thread up and running. I really am. Not tonight. Not tonight.
No.
God, no. Probably on the weekend I'll get that together. Or when I'm in work and I just can't be asked doing anything. When I'm absolutely exhausted in work tomorrow, I'll get my lads to do all the work, and I'll just sit. I'll just sit there and just, oh, what are you doing? You won't understand. You won't understand. Just at me just giggling every like 2 minutes.
Understandably, though.
But I am going to start off with the Doughnut promo.
It's got to be done, mate. It's the best one. It really is.
And it'll fit in the 2 minute and 20 second limit that Twitter has, I think.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, it is about 3 minutes. Because I've recently downloaded it.
We can cut through the Michael Cole stuff at the start. As soon as the cops come in, that's when
the
magic
fuck Michael
happens.
Cole. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a current thing as well. Fuck Michael Cole.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what better way to end it by saying fuck Michael Cole?
I agree.
It's like fuck Mags, but it's fuck Michael Cole.
I mean, everyone fucks Mags. Everyone wants to fuck.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad we've actually managed, despite the fact that it's 1:30 in the morning, I'm glad that we finally managed to have this chat, because I love talking about The Rock. Like I've said, like we could talk about The Rock for fucking hours, days, and I would never get bored of it, because there's always something that you go, I remember that, and then you go, oh, that's triggered something else. I remember that. So hey, fuck it, we'll do a 2-parter. We'll come back to it in the future at some point, and we'll probably just rehash everything we just said. But it'll be a great time had by all. So who cares?
I am fully on board for that, mate. I'm fully on board. Count me in.
But thank you for coming on, and of course, you will be on Monday for DOW Draft That as well. So it is an Omega Luke double bill.
Oh yeah,
so
double header.
You are all over the Dits on Wrestling podcast this week.
Well, it's been a long time coming, mate. It's been a long time coming. So I thought, why just do one episode?
Exactly. So just 2 in the space of a week. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Screw it. And then I'll get you on.
No,
next
thank
week
you very
as well.
much for having me on, though, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure doing both.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it goes without saying, open invitation. Whenever you want to come back on, you have a spot.
Love that. To come back just to talk about The Rock, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take it. Yeah, cheers, buddy.
Thank you, mate.
Big props for Omega Luke coming on the show this week and coming to the rescue. Really fun chat, talking about one of our favorite things, The Rock, or favorite people, should I say. But no, that is the show this week. No Q&As, as I said earlier. I'm going to go off now and watch some Rock videos, despite the fact that it is incredibly early in the morning. I need to kind of, whenever I do any editing or recording or anything like that, I kind of need just a moment to just come back down to earth, because my mind runs a million miles an hour when I'm doing all this kind of stuff. Believe it or not, I do have a brain. And yeah, there's so many great moments in that chat that I need to check out. And I will put together, my favorite Rock moments on Twitter. So look out for that as well if you are a big fan of The Rock, just like Luke and myself. So you got that to look forward to. But that is all we have time for today. It's been despite the fact that I messed up with the time zones and, sadly weren't able to get my wrestler guest on. He will be coming on in the next 2 weeks. Not next week, the week after. So that'll be episode 24. We'll have him on. So look out for that and who it is. But that is all we have time for today. And thank you so much for listening and putting up with my mistakes. But of course, you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker as part of the SLTD Podcast Network, iHeartRadio, and a host of other random podcast directories. So there is all that good stuff. You can find me anywhere. Of course, Draft That, the new series. Episode 3 drops on Monday with Omega Luke, so a double bill of Omega Luke it is on the Dits on Wrestling podcast. So look out for that. It's going to be a very, 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 well, it is a very, very fun episode, I can assure you. So get that marked down in your calendars, because that's dropping on Monday. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you on Monday. Ciao for now.